Check. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's perfect. That works for me.
All right, Doug, we're going to do a little bit of an intro. So hold your beer up to the mic.
Hopefully it's not shaking up.
3, 2, 1.
Good pop.
Good pop.
Cheers.
Sody pop.
Ooh,
yummy.
That's really good.
Cody Wilkins. Welcome to the Dead Sailor Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
You got to remember to talk into the microphone.
Thank you for having me, Ty. It's good to be here. Long time in the works, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Not really. You haven't been doing it that long, but
You're only episode 4.
Yeah,
so.
but I've been anxious to come hang out with you, so.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. You were just on a podcast.
I was, yeah. Trail building podcast, Trail Effect, which is
Nice.
cool. It's like a trail company out of the Midwest, and talks a lot about trails.
I listened to, I don't know if I got through all of it, but I listened to quite a bit of it. Yeah, it was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's
kind of talking about the history of like how you got started with Sensus.
Yeah,
which
yeah.
we will, or Sensus Rad Trails, which we will get into as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. But yeah, I mean, it was good. It was good to talk about trails. I'm more of a trail salesman than I am a trail builder these days. So nice. I'm well rehearsed in a lot of the what we need to talk about when it comes to building and throwing dirt around. So.
Yeah. Well, before we get into all of that, tell us a little bit about yourself. For the people who might not know who you are, who are you, Cody?
I'm Cody Wilkins, mountain biker, trail builder, run a nonprofit for one of the baddest dudes in mountain biking, and we've been fortunate enough to do a bunch of really cool projects all over the world. And yeah, I'm rider and skier first, and kind of just fell into the job of being able to throw a shovel and run an excavator for a living, which has been really cool the last few years.
Nice. Where were you born? Were you raised? Where'd you come from here?
I'm from New York. I'm an upstate New Yorker. Yeah. There's not a lot out west. There is actually a lot in Bellingham, but you know, when people say New York or hear New York, they think New York City, but I'm from a town of like 100 people in upstate New York, like 3 hours north of the city. Catskills, Lou Beach, New York, right down the road from Plattekill Bike Park, which is, if you know anything about Plattekill, it's one of the most legendary bike parks of all time. Super gnarly. But I learned to ski there and bike there, and we grew up racing BMX, my brother and I, and we would ski at this tiny ski area every single weekend. And one spring, they were like, we need trail builders to come out and help. And I was probably like 12 years old, and my dad just dropped us off, and we started swinging pickaxes and cutting trees down, and before you know it, that was the first place that I ever drank a beer and smoked pot. And now here I am, almost 20 years later.
smoking pot and drinking beer still?
Yeah, with a history teacher from Long Island.
Amazing.
But it was really cool because you'd show up and you'd build for the day, and they'd stop building at 2, and they'd run the chairlifts from 2 to 5, so you get 3 hours of riding. And then every day that you worked, you'd get a race entry for later in the year for downhill, and then you'd also get a ticket. So if you worked like all the trail days, you don't even need a season pass, and all your race entries are paid for. So my dad was stoked for that. And then, yeah, it was just cool. You'd meet, like, at the time, it was like me, I mean, not to even put myself in the same category as these guys, but it was like Richie Rude, Nico Mullally, the Shaw brothers, like Ray Siren. Like, it was like the craziest, like, it was almost discouraging racing because you do the best you could and you get like 10th place because like you'd have all these heavy hitters above you.
Yeah. But what year is this?
I think I did my first like build and like downhill racing in like probably 2004.
Okay.
Yeah, like a while ago.
Yeah.
Like, because I didn't grow up like I have a BMX background from racing, but like I grew up in the middle of nowhere. So there's like no pavement, there's no skate parks, there was no dirt jumps except for like what I built. So like I actually got into mountain biking super early. Like I was probably riding like downhill like 2003, 2004, which is pretty crazy to think about. Like, I feel like most people, and yourself included, like, you go through this, like, until you're 18 to 20, you're on a 20-inch or skating, and then you kind of transition. But, like, we were right into it. I think I only had, like, 1 or 2 BMX bikes, really.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, if you, like, grow up or live somewhere where there is even remotely good mountain biking, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and the East Coast is, like, I mean, a lot of West Coasters don't believe it when I say it, but I think it's still some of the sickest riding in the world.
I'm becoming a believer.
Yeah.
I see a lot of footage and content coming from Vermont, upstate New York, even New Jersey, like just killer ride. I mean, so Billy Lewis.
Yeah,
who
no,
you
Billy,
know,
yeah.
Billy, he just got back from being out that way for a little while, and he was just like, dude, there's a bike park, like they're 30, 40, an hour away from each other, like insane mountain bike parks with like killer trails and big jump lines, and they're all within driving distance from each other. And I'm like, wow,
I think I counted one time. There's like 26 within the 6-hour radius lift access.
That's insane.
You know what it is? It's like out here we deal with like Forest Service and public land, which is great. Like we can get out on trails like anywhere. And actually our trail systems are more expansive, and we can like go out on dirt bikes and horses and hiking and stuff like that. But it's all these family-run ski resorts. So it's like, or ski areas. So in the summer, they're like, oh, we need extra income. Let's just build trails. Like Platikill, like they didn't even have a trail crew. They just were like, let's just build trails. And it just, people just go rake trails in. Not even riders would just go like burn this stuff in. So it was kind of cool. It just like happened. And then one does it, and then the ski area down the road needs to compete. And then, you know, it's like between Mount Snow and Mount St. Anne, like we're on everybody's radar. But then all those other smaller resorts kind of like residually just kind of fed off that. And then Highland really stepped it up. Like Highland, you know,
big time, yeah.
Oh my gosh, like it's only 500 feet of vert, but it's so good. And when they built the jumps, the first like 3 years of Highland, I'll say right now, were not that great. Like the jumps are just like, they just kind of went for it, and it worked out really well in the long term. But the first few years a little sketchy, and that's when like Smooth Talk and Slim and like that like badass like hardcore East Coast like chain reaction scene kind of like went off, and those guys started like going ham, and Smooth Talk still runs it. And then all the other resorts kind of had to follow suit. So it went from being like, okay, let's go race gnarly downhill in the snow and the mud every weekend, to like, oh, we can have like proper jump lines that are better than any bike park I've ridden out west except for Whistler.
Yeah.
So sorry, bike parks out west.
Yeah.
You suck.
Well, I mean, Washington in general just has bad bike parks. I mean, it seems like it's getting better, and there's just not a lot even. You know, I mean, what, 2? Right? It's just 2 legit mountain
So
bikers.
Quality just opened.
In Stevens Pass.
I don't think Stevens is running anymore.
No, I think Vail brought it back.
Okay.
I don't know if they did last season, but
Yeah.
I think it was, they were intentionally, or I think they got enough negative feedback from the public. Unfortunately, they literally had the bike park closed during the most important time to have the bike park open. It was
gets
during
people on
COVID.
bikes. It just like bugs me.
They literally closed the bike park down and said, "Oh, I mean, they had bullshit reasons. Vail just screwed it. Like they fucked up big time." But they finally got enough backlash from, I think, just the greater Seattle area saying like, "Bring the bike park back. Bring the bike park back. Bring the bike park back." That I think I don't know if they had it open last summer, but I think it's opening again next.
Good to know. I mean, we're really fortunate, as you know, here. Like, we don't really need a bike park, especially as like.
Well, Galvey is essentially a bike park.
It's essentially a bike park, yeah, and it's a sick bike park. But like, also like we can pedal now. But I think just for the sake of like getting people into trails, it's like into biking. It's like a really like, and also if you're a skier and you're like transitioning in like, or a snowboarder, it's like climbing sucks. Like I like it, you know, now, but it took like 10, 15 years to like it. And so it's kind of cool that like you can go ride a beginner trail and like experience the best part about biking like right away, and then you can work up to pedaling. Yeah, you know, totally. And so I think that's why bike parks are important. I mean, on the flip side, you have like Silver. Have you been to Silver?
Yeah.
Oh, that place is so sick. Would never take a beginner there.
No, I rode their double black trail, and it was fucking scary.
It's so gnarly. I came in a little hot-headed the first time I rode there. I was like, I can ride any double back trail at a bike park. Yeah. And I came around the first corner, like into this drop shoot section. I was like, I'm gonna look at this whole
and that's
trail.
what it is. It's like it's like a 4-foot drop into a rut filled with baby heads.
Yeah, it's like something you'd find here out in the woods.
Yeah, and you're like, what? This I also went through so many tubes. I literally blew I changed like 3 tubes in one day.
Arm pump and pop tires.
And then the descent from Silver all the way back to the parking lot is so long.
So good. I've only done a couple enduro races, but that's one where I'm like, I should probably go do this race.
Yeah.
Probably finish a solid last place.
Yeah. I know, and that, I mean, I feel like that's like just Silver in general is just like a hidden gem that is just waiting to like blow up. Like I feel like the access to everything is really good there, and the trails are really good. The skiing looks amazing. there's moto, there's snowmobiling.
The moto is really good there. I did a moto trip there this summer that was like mind blowing.
And it's affordable. It's in the scheme of like
mountain towns.
Yeah, mountain town, resort town with access to all that kind of stuff. You can still get a house at a decent price there.
Yeah, it's cool. And Coeur d'Alene and Spokane have great riding. It's like Beacon Hill is really cool. Mm-hmm. And there's a bunch of stuff popping up in that corridor. You have like Legacy Bike Park, which is up on Flathead Lake by Kalispell. And that's, why am I blank on it? Tirefire Trails, Pete Costain. He's like a legendary backcountry skier, runs a trail company. His son's like a super badass pro big mountain skier. Mm-hmm. They just built like a Coast Gravity style park in the U.S. And they've had free ride events. They've put airbags in, like mulch jumps, proper jump line. Like they're like making something that's like, people want it. They're taking like that Highland model of like, no, this is just a bike park, good camping, pump tracks, like, because like, I mean, I saw you at Whistler a couple of times this summer. It's like you go up there and it's fun. Whistler's always fun, but like, it's not always fun sitting in an 1.5-hour bike park line or like riding like A-Line or like Dirt Merchant when it's like totally blown out. There's a lot of other places I'd rather ride than like Whistler in bad conditions on a crowded day. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of cool that we have like, it's like, oh, you want to go hit big jumps that are probably going to be better groomed than Dirt Merchant or A-Line on a given day. Like Legacy is like right there. It's a little out there, but like, we're back and forth between Wyoming a lot. So I go there like 3 or 4 times a summer.
Yeah. So let's go back onto that. Yeah, so you grew up on the East Coast.
Yep.
Got into mountain biking out there, got into trail building out there.
Yep.
What brought you to the West Coast?
I did the classic East Coast, like went to the University of Vermont because I read a Decline article that Dave Smutok had gone there. Mm-hmm. And it was like they used to do those little columns. It's like news and mountain biking. It was like Dave Smutok got his college degree from the University of Vermont. And then I was at a race at Plattekill and this van comes, there was a collegiate race there that weekend, and this van comes rolling. I was probably like 16 years old, and like smoke bellowing out of it, beer cans falling out of the door, and these kids in Rasta jerseys at the University of Vermont, like jerseys on, get out, like
this is the collegiate team,
D1 baby, Division 1 downhill, and they showed up and they raced, and I was like, I wanted to go out west so bad because I was a skier first. I was like, I want to go to what's it, Western Colorado College, and or like go to like somewhere in Denver, just like somewhere I could just like ski. Yeah. And then I saw that, I applied to the UVM, and I was there the next semester.
Yeah. Well, did you join the collegiate team?
Hell yeah. 2007 or 2012 or no, 2011. I was the Eastern States slalom champ.
Nice.
Yeah, and got 5th at nationals.
Nice.
So that was the last, and then I swapped racing after that.
Yeah.
So I did 2 years there, but I actually finished school at Sierra Nevada College in Lake Tahoe because I was friends with like all these kids on the bike team that were older, and I still like wanted to be a big mountain skier so bad. So they all moved to like Squaw Valley, now Palisades, and I was like, I'm just going to transfer schools, treat school like a job, work 40 hours a week, commute to school 3 days a week, and just ski every day. So I lived there for 2 years. Skied a ton, biked a ton too, but like mainly I was like, I want to compete in the FWQ. Then I moved to Jackson for 4 years.
So, nice.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Great. Yeah.
And then when you were in Jackson, what were you doing while you were in Jackson? Working and digging.
Dude, I've done so many jobs. Yeah. I worked in restaurants for 13 years straight, but I've dishwashed, delivered pizzas, done sheetrock,
Did you just move there to ride bikes?
No, I moved to Jackson to ski.
Nah.
I was still like super focused on skiing, and that's just like the place to do it. And I kind of slowly got back into biking. I blew my knee twice in the time I was there. Had a couple close buddies pass away skiing or in like speed flying accidents. And then I got caught in an avalanche as well. And then I was like, after that, I was like, oh, like what are my priorities here? And I was like, maybe I should revisit biking. Mm-hmm. And I kept emailing like the fest guys. I was like, I know I can hit your jumps. Can I come hit it? Never got an email back.
Of course not.
But I was like, please. And so for years I would like send emails every single spring. I would like the one in Norway, anybody can go do. And I was like saving up to go to Norway. And then I got wind that Cam was going to hold one, that like Zink was going to hold one in Reno. Mm-hmm. And this kid, Ray Siren, that I grew up riding and racing with on the East Coast, was like working at YT and Sensus. And I was just like, yo, Ray, if I come dig for free for a year, do you think Cam will let me ride in the event? And he was like, instantly was like, hell yeah, you get your ass to Reno. So I moved to Tahoe, back to Tahoe for a year, and worked in a restaurant, Went up to Alaska for summer to fish. And then I came back, but like every single day off, I was just like on Cam's property digging, like sometimes till like 1 or 2 in the morning for free. And I finally got to ride in his event. It ended up being like an official fest event because they have all this weird politics and stuff. But he just was like, anybody wanted to dig. It was actually really cool because you had like the baddest dudes in the world and then all these like young guns who just like put in the time digging. And I was like, after that, I was like, maybe I should just start my own trail company, like getting a little burnt out. And he was like, dude, don't do that. Like I started a nonprofit like a few years ago. I don't really have a ton of time to run it. Like you should just run with that. Like I'm not trying to make money off of it. Like I just want to get it going.
Yeah.
And so from that point on, we were just like, yeah, that's when we started Rad Trails like officially. And that was like 2017.
Yeah.
So I think
was that like around the time that you moved to Bellingham?
That was like right after. So that event happened. And then we didn't love living in Tahoe. So we're just like, and I had a bunch of friends up here, like Caldwell and Ann and Sam and that crew, and Greg Townsend. So I was like, let's just move to Bellingham. It's kind of nice. It's kind of like where Ski Town, like dwellers come to retire.
I know. It's so funny how all of you guys are so, like, you guys have so much history from the East Coast, from like Vermont and being like in that area together, and you're all here now, and you're all like still like.
Well, if you look at the numbers, everybody is like a little bit older than the last. So like Caldwell was like one of the guys that I followed out, but Sam and Ann are then like a year younger than them, and then I'm 2 years younger than Sam and Ann. So like what happens is you have your East Coast like ski buddy or bike buddy move out west, and then you're like, man, where can I go live? And then they have a couch for you to stay on. They got a job lined up for you. And so it's like, before you know it, you're just stacking and stacking and stacking. But I got out of there too early, so I don't have my little protege until my brother graduated high school and said, fuck it, to college. Yeah. And now he's digging trails for us. So,
heck yeah. Does he live here now?
No, he lives in Reno.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so like we're full-time out of Reno. Like I like Reno, Tahoe, and I spend a lot of time there. But I just don't like the dry. Like, I just like living in like a community like this. I love being by the ocean. It's like my favorite. And then just like also being removed from work when I'm home. Like I work quite a bit when I'm home, a lot of computer stuff, but it's like I come home to Bellingham and it's like it's kind of like a reset. Because when I'm on the road, it's like I love traveling and I love building, but it's like I'm on the road a lot. So I try to bust out the work. Like I'll work 10, 12 hours a day just so I can get home quicker.
Yeah. I can imagine when you are, like if you live in Reno, where Sensus Rad Trails is based out of, like you could probably never really disconnect, right? When you have that time off. Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I also knew from the get-go, I was like, okay, like building trail is cool. Like how long can I physically do it? Right. Like I see my dad, who's like, he's in great shape. He's still a carpenter. And it's like, but I'm like, I don't want to be like limping around, swinging a pickaxe, like dragging rocks around. And I think like my strength is actually the business side of trail building. Like, you know, like there's builders here in the woods that have moss growing on their backs that are probably the sickest trail builders in the world. But like, do they want to come hang out at a city council meeting with me for 2 hours?
No, like, I think you either go one way or the other. You go the Eric Brown of the WMBC route, which is that, or you go the Todd Zimmerman route, which I can't wait to have those two guys on this podcast. That's going to be a really
and that'll be cool. And I think that's a good perspective because it's like, and so I'm trying to find this balance of like, how do we get the baddest fucking trail builders in the world, but like have that business like level on it. Like,
right. So you are essentially bridging the gap, right? You're going, I'm not the one, like, you're the one that is going to employ the Todd Zimmermans of the world and give them the canvas to paint on, right? And then they get to build whatever crazy shit they want to build. And you just do the dirty work for them, right? Yeah,
and it is kind of fun. I still love being in the excavator, but now it's like I kind of hand pick the projects I'm on, which is kind of nice. Like I was just down in Mexico helping Johnny build the freeride Fiesta course, and then like Jackson Hole, I love that place. And when I was there, I wanted more riding, I wanted bigger jumps, so it's like we finally got the contract to build like a big jump line there, like a zinc signature line, which is coming together. It's proper. It's like Mohawk meets Blue Steel. Like nice. Really, really sick.
Cool. And so it's going to be like somewhat technical, but
yeah, like that was the thing. Like we didn't want to just build like, oh, they're 40, 50 foot jumps, like big mellow lips, straight tabletops. It's like we wanted it to feel like, I wanted like to feel like you're riding dirt jumps, but you could do it on a downhill bike, trail bike, 29er. Like we put in a big Canon boner log thing. Like, you know, it's very techy. Like I want like the stuff you see from Europe meets like the backwoods trails, like meets like natural selection.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like Jackson, and we work with their bike park crew, like, because we're small, and I know how rad those guys are and girls on their team. So like when we come in, we're like, let's work with you guys. So we'll have like 3 machines running, and it'll be like 2 of our guys, 2 of them, and just swapping handwork and stuff. So I'm like personally connected to that. Like, I'd rather spend my summers here than Jackson, but it's like I talked so much shit when I was there, like being like, we need more trails. So it's like it would be a kick in the shins to younger me if I wasn't the one there digging and facilitating that.
Yeah.
So,
which
is cool.
That's sweet.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah. So you moved here in what? You said like 2017 or so.
Yeah, maybe 2018. I forget. Yeah.
Yeah. And since then, you are, I just noticed you have done a lot of traveling.
Yes.
I bet you have some air miles.
I have some serious miles, actually.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And it's like for work, too. I only fly out of Bellingham because it's Alaska only. So I stack Alaska miles.
Nice.
Yeah.
So where are you doing a lot of your trail building? Like, is it nationwide, or are you condensed mostly to like West Coast stuff?
No, we're all over the place. I think like at first we were so desperate to get things going that I was like, anybody who's got a trail, like, we'll build it. And it kind of turned into like, I think the first full-time year we did like Florida, Missouri, Mexico, Nevada, Idaho. We did some consulting in Colombia and Medellin. Like,
wow.
And it was cool because then I think like what we realized is that like there's a ton of successful trail companies right now. Mm-hmm. And like, for-profit, nonprofit, they're all doing amazing things, but they're very regionally based.
Yeah, sure.
And like we could kind of do that in Tahoe, but it's a pretty established scene. So it's like we couldn't be the nonprofit. The Biggest Little Trail Stewardship does an amazing job. TAMBA, Tahoe Area Mountain Bike Association, does a phenomenal job. So there wasn't room for us to be like the local nonprofit. So we're like, how can we be like the continent's or like the world's local nonprofit?
Yeah.
So like that's the big thing with us. It's like, well, I'll get somebody like a kid in Phoenix hit me up and he's like, hey, like I want to do a pump track for my high school project. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, like I know you don't have any money, but like I'll sit down with them on Zoom and stuff and be like, you need to do this, and I'll run them through the steps on our own time, because like for us, like that gets a trail built,
Sure.
Or like we have a couple projects where the grant money's there, but they don't have a nonprofit to filter it through. So like we'll actually forego our chance to bid on a project and let that grant money like come through us, just so they can even just get some tools or whatever going, just so the money just like, because if the money doesn't come initially, it'll never come again.
Yeah.
And then there's other projects where it's like my mom's hometown in Minnesota was our big project this year. Town of 2,500 people. And we built like 7 miles of like flowy cross country trail and a little jump park, which was really cool. And that one I went to bid on it, stayed with my grandma. It was a lot of work, but I was in Minnesota for a long time. But it was cool because as much as I love going and building 60-foot jumps for Johnny Solito in Mexico and drinking micheladas, honestly, it's like more important to the bike world to like have a small town, get some berms and some jumps, because there's a lot of good builders there that can show up and build some amazing cross country trails. But I told them, I was like, if we want to like make these trails like for everybody, we need jumps. Like kids aren't going to come ride cross country trails. So we built a bunch of jumps, a little jump park, some rock rolls, some stuff that's like, and we saw it, like we weren't even done, and there's like these kids showing up, no helmets. And so we started giving them helmets, and I bought a bunch of bikes from the local bike shop just to live at the shop. So kids can like, or adults can be like, I want to try mountain biking. You can go there, grab a helmet and a bike and just go ride for free.
Yeah. God, that's amazing.
And I bought them full price because the shop was like, I'll hook you up. This is a great idea. But like, he's also trying to sell bikes in this small town.
Right.
So we try to do stuff like that, because like those projects, it's like I grew up in a small low income town. Like I know how important bikes were for me. So like if we can get these kids on bikes, at least try it, and they like it, then they can get a job, travel around, do whatever they want, become obsessed, and be, broke bike bums like you and I for the rest of our lives.
Right.
Or like they don't like it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I just like wanted that so bad. So it's like, it's important to know how to build a 60-foot jump. But on the flip side, I think it's more important to like sell a 10-foot tabletop to a city. Yeah. Like as far as like biking goes.
Yeah. That's super cool. It's almost like just kind of hearing about like all of that reminds me a lot of like the Tony Hawk Skate Park Foundation.
Dude, we listen to so many 9 clubs like based on that.
Yeah.
Like he's our hero for that.
Yeah. Because I mean, he started, and I don't know if Cam's like I'm not sure if Cam started with like his personal money or if it was like a Sensus funded thing to start it. Either way, you know, it's coming from a resource like that to get the foundation going, and that's a lot like the Tony Hawk Foundation. Like it was like he started it from, you know. It was an Activision check, I think is what he said in the 9 Club. He's like, yeah, that's actually that first check I got from Activision for the whatever when the game went greatest hits or whatever. That was what funded the Tony Hawk Foundation. And I remember when I was a kid trying to utilize that channel to get a park built in our town, and our town was tiny, dude. It was a farm town, you know. Yeah. We never really were able to. We didn't have anybody to help coach us through that process, so it never really happened, right? Because we even don't really know where to begin. You know, we apply, and then it's like, oh, well, we need. You know, there's a lot of bureaucracy, red tape that you got to work around. You know,
yeah. Explain to a 50-year-old guy on a city council that's never touched a skateboard or a bike in his life like the importance of it. You know, that's
in
a hard
town that's already strapped for like a shitload of cash, trying to say, oh, you should put this infrastructure in. They're like, what? Skateboarders are a bunch of hooligans,
you know? But good hooligans.
You know, like, but like in the bike, like in the bike world, I feel like bicycles, maybe not, maybe it's different nowadays, and probably is very much different nowadays. But the world of I feel like bikes are a lot easier of a sell. It's less of like we're grinding on your rails and grinding on. You know,
there's no age limit,
private property or whatever.
Like I like to say it's like taking skiing and skateboarding and like kind of meeting in the middle. Like, and there's the trouble with biking that we're finding. There's a really high initial like upfront cost.
Oh yeah,
and which sucks. And that I think there's some companies that are doing some cool stuff. But if you actually add it up, like skateboarding is the only sport, maybe BMX, that's like cheaper.
Yeah, skateboarding you can get a complete skateboard.
You're in for $100,
$100.
And then you're buying a $50 deck a year. You know, if you're breaking it, you know, and your trucks and bearings will last forever. But the thing with biking is that like it's an easier family sell. You know, it's like it has a cleaner cut image. Like unfortunately, like I think you probably attest to this. I want biking to be like really inclusive and friendly and this like family model, but I don't want it to be like skiing where it's like this like catalog, you know, like bullshit where it's like a real estate thing, like families on vacation biking. Like I think there's a good medium where it's like if you can get a family on a bike, it can be a casual outdoor experience. Really the investment, I know it's a lot of money, but like you buy a bike, it's good for a few years, you don't need to do much, and you can go out your door and it's free to use after that point. So it's kind of like this medium of like those two. So cities are, I mean, like the state of Minnesota, they have this thing called the Legacy Grant, and 7/8% sales tax, and a third of it goes to fish and game, a third of it goes to the arts, and a third of it goes to trail access.
Wow.
So they're pumping millions into trails. And you go there, I tell everybody I know that works at bike companies, I was like, if you're not focusing on the Midwest demographic and the Southeast, you're missing the market. Like those guys, I would go every single weekend, the parking lot's completely filled. Like at Cuyuna, up in Duluth, Minnesota, badass trails. So sick. And everything from fat bikes to like, you know, your $12,000 S-Works frames, you know, everything in the middle. But it's so casual. No one's wearing like fancy gear. Everybody's super friendly. There's beers on it. It's like Galbraith or here, like some of the illegal trails, but no one's like grilling you from afar. Because like I'm a pretty outgoing East Coaster, and that was one thing that bums me about Bellingham still. It's like I work in the bike industry, have friends in the bike industry, and it's like I still don't always feel like part of the community here. Like no one's like actively reaching out all the time. And that's like bums me out because it's like I'll go up to people in parking lots all the time and chat with them and like talk their ear off and get them all fired up. But like for me in Bellingham, it's like, you know, I mean, you know where I'm talking about. You go to certain zones here. I'm like, I've been coming here for 6 years. I've offered to help dig. I brought you beers and you guys still hate me. Like, get the fuck out of here. Like, I'm so over that. Like,
I do think it's a generational thing because Doug over here, he's behind the scenes here. Doug, when I had Doug on, we talked about the younger generation when we went to the Atmospheric River Rats video premiere. At
those kids are rad.
There was an entire group of people that were there that I had no idea existed in this community. Yeah, and the vibe from that, like the 21 to whatever, you know, the early to mid 20s crowd is more like, hey, we're shredding, we're having fun, we're having a good time, at least from what I've observed.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I think it's the guys that are our age, guys and girls that are our age, probably mostly guys. Guys are just dicks.
Yeah, 100%.
That you know, are in their 35 to 40, you know, in their 40s, and they're just like, this is my town, this is my trail.
Too many people on the trail.
Fucking Seattleites, you know. That I think that vibe and that energy comes from our generation, which, you know, and I don't really know why people are like that the way they are.
I think people need something to be passionate about. And sometimes it's like being territorial, and you know, and like, not to say like they put so much work into the trails. I mean, you know, you and I know, like, there's the sickest trails in the world exist out our door. And so it's like, I get it. And there is reason to be protective of it. But like, if you already know about it, or you knew the 4 turns up the dirt road and which gate to go around to get to the trail, and you bump into somebody out there, like, you know, it's, you know, you can let it slide a little bit. Yeah. And like, you know, it's just one of those
but
things.
But even
I've
on
noticed.
Galby, like,
oh
sorry.
my God, yeah.
Galby is a public mountain bike. It's no secret. There's no secret about Galby. Like, don't be so upset about people coming to ride Galby. Like, you gotta let it go. You know, I totally get it for a trail that you built, you know, out in the county somewhere, and you're like, man, I spent 2 years building this trail, and now
there's brake bumps on it.
Yeah, right, exactly.
But you're right. Like, that younger generation's rad. I mean, like Talus, man. Like, that kid is like the nicest kid in the world.
Yeah, totally.
And it's funny because I actually met him down in Mexico last year for the first time, and like he was like my into that younger crew, and I was like, oh, like, these kids are rad. They're just stoked. And then his filmer Evan is super rad too, and like Spencer. Like, I've only, like, Talus I've worked with the most, and Evan too. I got him down to Cam's event this year. I let him, same thing for me. I was like, he wanted to go so bad. I was like, if you go dig, you can go ride, man. And he was like, they just camped there and dug every day. Yeah. Like, Cam was like, what kind of grums you send down here? And I was like, trust me. And then he like saw him ride, and he's like, holy shit, he's the real deal. He's like the
Talus
sickest.
is on a upward trajectory. It's so impressive, and it was so funny talking to him about his on when he was on the podcast talking about like him learning tricks. He talks like it's like 10 years ago. Yeah. But really it was like a year ago or 2 years ago.
Because I remember seeing him up at like the jumps all the time, and like he was always good, but like I wasn't like, I wouldn't watch him and be like, that kid's gonna be like the dude, like gonna be placing at proving grounds. And then like, it was like last year I watching him ride at Johnny's event, he'd like hit something. I was like, damn, dude, like no one else has really done that on this course, and it's like the biggest, heaviest hitters in the world. Like, even all the Frenchies, like the best free riders in the world right now, are like cruising, you know, like cruising through, and he did something that was like on par with like William Robert, and you're like, oh, that kid is legit. Yeah. And he's just a nice kid. Like, I think that was a sick thing when I first started chatting with him. I was like, oh, you're just like genuinely a good dude, which is like, it's tough because I feel like you got to be on edge when you're like that good, and especially if you like want to be competitive. But there's a bunch of kids like that. Like, we have like, if Talus ever wants to dig, I like, because I know he's like trying to make it, so I try to give him flexible work when we have it. So he's dug for us a little bit. And then this other kid, Luke Whitlock, is really sick too.
I follow. Did he ride for KHS?
He still is on KHS, yeah. And so he's same deal. Like, he's like trying to make it work. You know, and I was talking to like Greg Watts works for us now too. So we have like this like kind of collective. It's like, I'm the worst mountain biker of all of our builders, you know, which is a good problem to have. But like, I was talking to Greg about it, and he's like, yeah, these guys, like when I was their age, like I could buy a house with like the contracts we were getting. And so it's kind of a bummer that like Luke and Talus can ride at those levels, and the industry has just changed. It's nobody's fault, really. It's just like, you know, with social media, and like there's way more riders. But for me, I'm like, okay, it's like, you want to work all winter, you know, we can pay you well to come make a little extra money. And then if you ever need to go to an event or whatever, like, you don't even have to ask for it. Just let me know when the event is and just go and take it. Yeah. And I kind of want to work up to it where we could act as like, not just a nonprofit for like getting kids on bikes, but like supporting those like younger kids that like, just to kind of put them in the right direction, where it's like, if Talus or Luke are working for us and they're like, oh man, like, I don't have a travel budget this year, but I really wanted to, like, I got invited to go to this event. Be like, okay, cool, man. Like, we'll buy your plane ticket over there. Yeah. Like, because I feel like that's a good way for, like, it's good advertising for us, but, you know, just in general, it's like, that's a cool way to, like, give back to the community, because you're not going to get a $100,000 frame deal, right? You know, as a 22-year-old, you know, unless you're winning, unless you're Emil, you know? Yeah.
Right. So, let's talk about your riding for a second. it's really interesting, kind of like seeing your focus is predominantly on like full length production pieces, right? Like you do these movies down to, you go to like Mexico and a fishing mountain biking trip, you know, or you're kind of like making like very pointed efforts to make like a longer, more in-depth piece. What drove you to that aspect of content creation?
I think it was like Dan Abrams who owns Flylow Gear. Mm-hmm. I've skied for him for a while and now bike for him. And he's been just like an insane mentor. And he kind of said it. He's like, like we sell products to, like, yeah, I want to see guys doing double backflips and hucking huge cliffs on skis and bikes and you doing insane shit on your bike. But that doesn't always sell. So he's like, when you're thinking of like the creative process, like think of like cool storylines, think of like cool adventures. And it just so happened I was like coming off a couple injuries at that point that they were talking about the Baja Lines video. Yeah. And I was like, man, like this is a sick idea. Like I know like the Claw and like those guys tried to do it for a New World Disorder, go to Baja, live off a boat and do that. But I was like, how can we like not like get non-endemic support for a video? Because if we're getting non-endemic support, that means it's going to have non-endemic distribution. And now like we're reaching the first time rider. Yeah. So like you might have the sickest edit of all time go up on Pink Bike. It's gone off the front page in a day. Yeah. It gets 10,000 views, 20,000 views. Like that's awesome. You're not really selling that many bikes unless you're a Brett Reeder or a Tom Van Steenberg or like, like one of the top dogs putting out this insane footage. But if like we go down to Mexico for a month, like go offshore fishing for marlin, like camp on beaches and like ride free lines that like end in the ocean, like it's still a high level of riding. But first of all, I don't need to kill myself. And second of all, like a fly fisherman might see that and be like, what the fuck are these guys doing? Yeah. And then it kind of
bridging two worlds.
Worlds. And then on that topic, like we kind of like strayed away from that with the subsistence stuff we do. So we do like one episode a year. We've done one in Colorado. We did one here. Our Wyoming episode drops in the spring. My buddy Alex Che and I do it. And we're fundraising for either Alaska or South America currently. Mm-hmm. But I was like, where should we distribute it? And we ended up putting up on Outside TV. And a lot of people are hating on Outside TV right now. It's like we have almost 250,000 views on our stuff, you know, because it's like people go on that you go on to smart TV and it's like trending. So it's like, it's just kind of being smart. It's like thinking like a marketer or like, from a production standpoint, it's like, I would love to like go out there and show that I can still do tricks and stuff like that. And I'm working on trying to shoot an edit like that now here in town. But like, as far as like getting money and like producing something, it's kind of cool to look back on that and like have this adventure component and just like know that you're like reaching eyes that like would never see biking. Yeah. Because like the visuals on like the last Subsistence Miles and I did, like it wasn't the best riding we've ever done, like him and I, and it was on trails that like, we built half of them and the rest were already built, but it's nothing crazy. Yeah. But if you watch that as a non-mountain biker and you like see the rock rolls and the scenery of the P&W and the moss and the wet and like camping in vans, then you like think about that. You're like, I want to do that. Yeah, and that's super accessible. Yep. And if you live in Seattle, you're like, oh, that's like right up the road. Like Orcas is literally a day trip for me. Right. And so it's like, how do we like tap into that? In the Wyoming episode, we did the same thing. There's so much footage from Teton Pass and so much footage from the resort that we just were like, let's not shoot a second of trail like from those places. So like you'll see when it comes out, it's like people are going to see that and their gears are going to be running. Where the hell in Wyoming is that? Mm-hmm. And so it's just like thinking outside the box. And also like I'm just getting like I don't want to get hurt. I'm like 8 surgeries deep right now at 30. Like I don't want to like go out and try. I do want to learn flares, but I don't want to like go like do 6 of them in a row and break my other collarbone. You know, it's like I'm still dealing with the metal in my current collarbone. Yeah, it's a pain in the ass. So.
No, that's cool. And the other thing too, I think is unique about like your approach is you're actively going for like sponsorships that are not the bike world, like the Fat Tire.
Yeah, and they're just the sickest company. Like they just want like the Tyler Weedy, the guy, like huge shout out to that guy. I mean, he supports like the approach film that Ann does. And like, I mean, he's the coolest guy surfing, but he's always saying that too. He's like, we're not an energy drink company. We're not like buying your helmet. He's like, make me want to do what you're doing. Yeah. Whether it's a surf contest, a ski contest, make me jealous of what you're doing to the point where I associate Fat Tire beer with like doing that. And so it's like good advice along the way. We still spend money out of pocket. Like I think I spent $4,267 last year out of pocket to produce like those 2 videos. Mm-hmm. And it's hard to get that deficit, but I'm okay doing it because we're just like on a roll with it. So it's like, and those companies that help us, like, they have no reason to, like, they get stuff out of it, but really it's like, because they're not sending their filmers. Like, I hire the filmers out of it. Like, I do everything with my buddy Alex. And so it's like the two of us are just like, it goes through my LLC that I use for being an athlete and for trail building. And then it goes out into that. So it's like we're paying taxes on it. We're like, you know, trying to make a cent here and there. But I also like, if we're getting a guy who films for TGR, like, I want to make sure that like he has a good experience when he's out here, and like we could take him out to dinner and like treat him right. So it adds up, but it's just cool to like step away, because so many athletes, I think these days, like just expect that stuff to happen when they're like, oh, I want to be a pro athlete. I want to talk to these brands. But like, man, the emails, and it's like, I added up my hours from dealing with brands 2 years ago. Like the first year I ever got like paid to ride my bike, you know, it wasn't that much money, but I was like, I got paid less than minimum wage for like essentially like a marketing role at a company,
right?
You know, and even though it's for 5 companies broken up, you're like, okay, so I'm making $11 an hour working for all these brands as a marketing agent, and it's like, that's not that good of a wage, you know? So you have to kind of be like, you have to put the effort in, and a lot of people don't realize that. And you just got to do it. If no one else is going to call you to like, I was on the injured reserve list for a couple, like KGB, who did that Baja Lines video. When I was still trying to make it as a skier, I was on their injured list for like this national park movie that did really well. And I was on the email, and I was just, you know, it sucks to say, but I was like, please, someone blow their knee. Like, I get, like, this is my shot, man. This is my fucking shot.
Was that the video? Sorry to interrupt. Was that the video that Eric Porter rode mountain bikes in?
No, this was a full ski movie. But it was they skied like all the national parks. So they skied like Yosemite, Glacier National Park, Yellowstone National Park. My good buddy Connery is in it, and it's like, it was really sick. But I just remember that was my first chance where I was like, am I gonna make it? And then I also realized, I was like, no one's gonna do this for me. So it's like, when we came up with that idea for Baja Lines, I called up KGB. I was like, do you guys want to do this? Like, help me fundraise. And it's like, you just have to do it, you know?
Yeah.
So it's, I feel like a lot of people just don't, like, they're waiting for a call, and it's not the ski movies of 15 years ago. No one's going to call you and invite you anywhere. You know, you got to just do it yourself. Yeah. So,
you know who I think of immediately, you know, the approach that you're taking is oh my gosh, why can't I think of him? Doug, who's the content creator that rides for Yeti?
Joey Schuessler.
Schuessler.
Yeah.
That's it.
Race collegiate with him.
Thank you, Doug. Joey Schuessler, he is like the epitome of that sort of mentality.
He does a lot better job at it than I do.
But I mean, he's also a very talented cinematographer and photographer. See,
I don't have those skills.
And like he's kind of got a crazy history and track record.
And he was fast as shit on a downhill bike.
Yes.
He won collegiate nationals the year I got 5th. Like, he is badass. He rode on the Edgy team as a junior with like that Kevin Aiello, and Gwyn was the pro rider, Jared Gray. Like, he was in that realm of like, I think he might have even raced a couple World Cups as an elite. Like, you know, you see him as for this adventure stuff, and like as a rider, you're not like necessarily impressed with the riding. You're impressed with like the overall of it, but like his base skills are badass, you know? So it's like, I want to be able to still go out and do a big ass backflip, or like, you know, hit a big ass drop that's scary. But it's like, I don't need to like get eyes on it. And I don't know, but that's my weakness too. I'm terrible with tech stuff. Like, if I could film and edit myself, I'd save myself so much money. We could put out way more content. We'd be way sicker. But I just have given up on that. I'd rather be a good excavator operator than that.
Yeah. But yeah, running a machine like an excavator is just like operating a camera. It's the same.
Except like with an excavator, I break everything around me, but with a camera, I just break the camera.
Yeah. So back to kind of like some of those projects. Do you have? I mean, you have that series that you're working on.
Yep.
What is?
So that's Subsistance.
Subsistance. Yep. How many episodes does that entail?
So we do. The original plan was to do 2 in a year or 3 in a year, and then we just realized with funding and stuff, we were pretty delusional with like how much that actually cost. You know, just to pay people fairly, and just timelines of weather. And my best friend Alex, who I work with, you know, as a kid now, he just had a kid this past spring, so it's like really tough to like dial in all that. So we try to do 1 episode a year, and then every year we get a little bit more support, so we can kind of like expand it. Like this year, like we finally got good support to like buy some really good music rights, and we've had like there's like this snowboard film culture like that comes out of Vermont. and ski culture that's like super powerful, and it's like they've all kind of like just jumped into the mountain bike realm. So we have a lot of friends that like have like work for Burton, have like done production pieces, like, you know, our music producers, like, so we have all these kind of like ins that we're like, you know, like we're asking favors constantly, but we're allowing to like build up this like network of really cool production. So we got this guy, Killian, I don't know his name. I've never met him, but I've been emailing with him. He's a friend of a friend. He does a lot of the music stuff for Burton. He's like helping us with like music rights for this next one. And he got like this soundtrack, and I was like, man, like we should have gotten this like on our first episode for the price he's given to us. It's incredible, and it's going to make this piece so much better. So like the next one, it's like, okay, now we know that this is our guy.
So is he like actively contacting a record label or somebody and saying,
yes,
and negotiating?
So he does
prices?
a lot of, he does like some music festivals and stuff. And then he kind of like, he's like, okay, what's your budget? And including paying me. And we're like, okay, so it's like X amount of dollars. And then he'll send us a Spotify playlist, and it'll have like 30 songs. And he's like, listen to this. I've watched a bunch of your videos, you know, from this series and other series. Like, this is what I think works. And so we've pulled like a few selects from it. And our editor, Charlotte, is like, this is awesome. Like, makes my job so much easier. And it's something from the get-go. We're like, we'll pay the filmer, we'll buy a ton of beer, like we'll go somewhere sick, and then it's like we're out of money by the end, and we have to get like some generic song for $10. But now it's like okay, maybe we put like a third of it towards the music, because that actually kind of makes it, and then like we'll pay the filmer really well, and then maybe when we do that big dinner at the end, like I'll pay for that out of pocket, you know. So it's kind of like that learning experience. But then the brands also are like seeing us get better at it as well. So it's like Flylow is like been so supportive, like, which is really cool. And then same thing with Fat Tire, and then Cetus and Banshee and all these brands have kind of like hopped right on, which is really cool. So we've been really fortunate, like just hopefully gaining momentum, and really it's just an excuse for us to do like cool shit. Yeah. You know, like I want to go down to South America really bad. And then I also want to fly in on a bush plane and do some free riding stuff up in Alaska.
Oh, that'd be sick.
It'd be cool. It'd be like one off. I want to like take the ferry up before they decommission it out of Bellingham with like all of our gear. We know a couple guides up there, and just go ham, and like kind of like what they just did for that free hub piece. But I want to be more like, you know, not to discredit mountain bikers, but as a skier, like, you know, we can put up with tougher conditions than like a bunch of like mountain bikers riding in cotton t-shirts. So I'm hoping to like go out and camp in like some badass locations and like hike some big lines and kind of do it like you would like a ski trip.
Yeah.
So,
that's awesome.
but it's going to take like twice as much as what we're, you know, so we're working on it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But I'd pay for that out of pocket too, just for that experience.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. So other than that, do you have any other projects that you want to like attack in the next?
I don't know. I think that'll take a lot of effort. And then just like focusing on building and stuff. Cam's made a good point. He wants to do more media and storylines around like the good stuff we do with the nonprofit, which it's tough for me. It's like from a business perspective, you can get a lot of criticism, especially when you're getting big contracts of like, oh, it's a nonprofit, you're making all this money. But like, I think people just don't realize how much it takes to like do construction. And so like,
I mean, as long as all that money is going back in, like a nonprofit means nonprofit. Like, it's got to go either directly back into the company to scale and expand, or like expand outreach to get more trails elsewhere, or whatever it is, hiring more people,
and it's totally, and like all our financials are, you know, you can go look at them.
Well, I mean,
it's part of the deal.
The requirement.
So, but it's like, I want to like, as far as projects go, like I kind of want to like focus on that so we can gain traction. Like, you know, we do a lot of private jobs actually, which a lot of people don't know about. Like we do like probably 6 backyards a year, like people with big, small backyards, trails, pump tracks, like whatever. And all the profits from that carry into like buying bikes, like free consulting. Like, you know, we went down to Colombia for a week and like talked them through getting trails built, and now they have a bunch of trails built, or like helping, you know, that's 4 hours of my time to help that kid in Phoenix or whatever.
Sure.
But it's like, we got to like kind of back that up just so people know that like we're actively trying to do that. Cause we do a lot of really cool shit, but it's like, it's tough to like, you know, for me, I'm like, hey, we're doing, it's like, I hate that on Instagram, and like, I don't have TikTok, but I'll watch it every once in a while where it's like, we're helping all these people today, and it's like on film, it's like, dude, like get the fuck out of here. But like when I realized, I'm like, damn, I think I got to do that. Like I think I got to start doing that. Like, hey, we just bought all these bikes for everybody. It's fucking cool, you know.
I mean, it helps sort of verify like like how that nonprofit money is being spent, right? Yeah. So do you? I guess this is a question for the structure, but do you do fundraising with Sensus Rad Trails, or is it only through like communities paying you or projects paying you? How are you guys generating income to keep
like
it going?
some of the sales from Sensus goes towards it. Like if we're going to do like, I'm trying to think, like if we're doing like an event or helping locally, especially, like we'll do sales that go towards that, maybe pay rent for builders if like the contract or the client doesn't have enough money to like pay our travel bills or something. But, I just like the fundraising thing is like really tough. I'm sure if we got in line with the right donors, we could have some guys that would love to be writing off, some tax write-offs, like donating to a trail company. But we found that like the need for building is so big right now that we may as well just be pulling the profits from those private jobs and like, like ski resorts, private clients, and turning those into like, goodwill projects. Mm-hmm. It's just easier. It's easier to budget it. It's like, Cam doesn't make money off the nonprofit. Like we pay our builders, we pay for our machines, and then it's just easier to roll that like right into that. Mm-hmm. So there's a couple of things, I think for me right now, there's so many trails that exist, like getting kids on bikes and adults on bikes is number one priority. It's super easy. It's straightforward. It doesn't take much time. Find a good bike shop, buy some bikes. Most people are willing to help out with that. So that's been the easiest way to get people out. And then been hosting a bunch of trail days and stuff like that in Reno, which is like, trail days are good to see how much work goes into trails, but they're not always the most productive. But just taking the lead on that and like showing up and explaining to a group of volunteers. But yeah, it's cool. We're learning still.
Yeah.
So
nice.
I think the consulting goes the longest way, to be honest. Like I think like as far as productivity goes, like showing up and selling a trail and explaining like jumps and safety and all that stuff to a city council is like the most productive thing we do, like straight up. Because, obviously if we build some trail and people get on it, that's great. But like if I can walk away from a meeting and have a city council member come up to me and be like, oh, thank you. Like I didn't realize that like a 15-foot jump can be safer than a 10-foot jump, mm-hmm. and that it should be professionally built. Then I know that something clicked. And when that money comes up for the bid, that guy's going to vote, or that woman's going to vote on that.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting because I think like in our world or in our heads, like mountain biking is like it's everything, right?
Everything.
We understand it all. It makes sense to us. It's like, oh yeah, trails. Every town needs to have hundreds of miles of trails. Like why doesn't every town have? But for like the average person that doesn't ride bikes or doesn't come from that sort of background, it's really hard for them to wrap their head around like why do we need to invest $10 million of city money into trail networks, like, and so I think having the EBs of the world, being able to sort of speak that language and sell it to a city council or whoever, to get those wheels turning is super important.
Yeah. And it's changed. Like there's a huge changing the guard right now. Like, guys like our age are stepping into those roles of authority. It's like, and we're the first generation to like grow up riding bikes, like BMX, skating. Like we understand the importance of it. And even if like, so it's like, instead of like, no disrespect to it, like we had this generation before us that built all this amazing single track and got people out on bikes and stuff, but they weren't talking to like, their peers when they were going to these meetings. And a lot of them rarely went into like roles of government, but like, we have like Forest Service managers that like grew up mountain biking, which is like,
no, I know.
This awesome. Is the first time that's ever happened because like a lot of the Forest Service managers that were retiring, it's not their fault. It just didn't exist. Horseback riding and hiking was the majority, And so now like we see these Forest Service managers and these city planners like that are like, oh, I bike every weekend. Oh, I grew up riding mountain bikes. I grew up racing bikes. I grew up skateboarding. Like, and it reflects because then you show up and they're like, no, we're down. We just need to like dial in the liability and the insurance on this. And like, it's a green light. So it's like, my job's getting easier every year, you know? And it's easy too, to like show the success of Bellingham and Squamish and Bentonville and Burke and like all these and Duluth. And like, it's no longer like, oh, well, Bellingham did it. Like you can do it here and wherever in the Midwest. It's now like, oh, you want to compare yourself to a Midwestern city like Duluth is investing $2 million in trail this year. Like, what you guys got, Yeah,
that's huge. That's huge. And that, and honestly, like that, in my opinion, is just going to add fuel to the fire as far as just mountain biking in general goes. Like the fact that like where I grew up in Michigan, like we didn't have public trails. Like there was no such thing as a bike park. I mean, I guess there was. Marquette Mountain had a bike park. And I think they even had a World Cup there at one point in
and
time.
Monster Park.
Yeah. But down in Southwest Michigan, there wasn't really a bike park, right? But now there is.
It's
in
blowing
Kalamazoo,
up.
there is a bike, like a small bike park that's got like, or not like lift assist or anything like that, but it's like a pedal, like sort of like Galby, but on a really small scale.
And dirt
with
jump
flow
parks.
trails and tabletops and all of this stuff.
It's so sick. And it's just
they're
as good
popping
as
up
anywhere
everywhere.
else. Yeah, and the money in the Midwest is like, it's, if you want to make a bunch of money trail building, move to the Midwest. Like, it's straight up. Like, it's prevailing wage. It's busy as crap. There's bids. I get notifications all the time. It's just so far away. And like, we're small, like, we have all these like big dreams to be like, oh, we could have all these employees, but like, we're sitting on 3 full-time employees. It's like kind of nice, right? And like, none of us are like, you know, we're not like, oh, we need to make as much money as possible. It's like, we can all pay ourselves. If we lose one job, we can all, you know, we can all eat, we can all pay our rent. And it's kind of like a nice place to be. Like, we don't need to be a massive company, but there's like 50, 60 person, 100 person trail companies in the Midwest that are crushing trail for like 13 to 15 bucks a foot. Like, slaying trail. It's crazy. And some of them are booked for 5 years, which is really cool because it's like, you know, and it's like, and then they end that cycle and then they go back to what they first built and they maintain it. But it's the Midwest right now is like the heart of it. Like, Duluth, Minnesota is so sick. I was so surprised when I showed up and rode there. It's cool to see that. It's like, and it's just as good as, it's better than most of California riding, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, we could probably you could probably go anywhere and it's probably better than most of California.
Yeah, exactly.
One thing I also wanted to talk about was Tirefire.
Tirefire.
Tell me the history. Okay, first of all, you can pitch it. That can be one of our advertisements. Sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Tirefire. Perfect. So tell the world what Tirefire is and how it came about and how you acquired it.
So, Tirefire, speed supply. We needed to learn how to run a business. So we bought a business from Greg Townsend and Dave Gormley, Alex J and I. No, it's just I don't know if you know Greg Townsend works over at Evil. He's one of our good friends, and his best friend from growing up, Dave, started a fender company a few years ago. And Alex J and I were like, we need to start a business. And we're like, we have all these ideas. And we're just like, we ended up just teaming up with Dave and buying Greg out. And just Greg still helps with design work on the back and creative stuff. But we just needed a way to learn to run a business. Like, it's just practice. Yeah. So it's like, we have an idea for a product. Let's do it. So it's like, we're making pants, coming out with like a Carhartt style vest that should be dropping in January. Cool. Doing some goggles. I just dropped POC as a sponsor. And so we're just like moving on up. One rule of thumb I learned from Cam Zink: if you can make more money doing it yourself, then you shouldn't be sponsored by them.
Well, that's kind of the mentality of a lot of stuff moving forward. Like, if you look at, Brett Reeder with Tidal.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude is just like, you know what? Why not?
Killing it.
Yeah, why not just have my own component company? And they're making really cool shit. It's
cool, and it's on brand with him, and he gets like
not as cool as Tenet, but
not as cool. It's not quite as cool. No, it's not. It's not as cool. It's too. I don't like the white. No, but like our thought was like, okay, like if we have an idea for something, it'd be cool to like try and execute it. So it's like, it's like really, we're never gonna make money off Tirefire. I mean, maybe we will. But the goal is like, my brother right now is having his name's Henry, so he's having Hank's Bank Slalom, and he has a slalom event on his birthday every year down in Reno, and he built an illegal slalom track up in the hills, and it's fucking sick. I mean, I have yet to go, but he like hand builds it. So we gave him like $75 cash to hand out, like best crash, best corner, like all that stuff. Got him a ton of Fat Tire beer, like. And it's like we sent them vests and pants and all this stuff to like stoke everybody out, fenders to give away. And it's just like to support cool projects. Like we supported In the Hills Gang, those kids, like the sickest. So it's like we made them fenders so they could sell and like pay for their road trip. We gave them like $1,000. It's just like all those like little deficits I've seen like in the bike industry of like people who should be supported. And it's also like teaching them. Like the In the Hills kids are like, they never got a check from somebody, but they had this grand vision to do this like sick road trip with all their homies. And so I was like, oh, like give us a W-9 and I'll send you a check. And, and like, oh, I need to see this. I need to see a pitch deck. And it wasn't like, I'm going to say no, whatever they send me. But I'm like, hey, like send me this because this is what someone else is going to ask for. You know, like, oh, you want to pitch this to YT? Like, cool, they're going to ask for pitch deck, financials.
Because they're all like Talus age, right? Like 19, 20.
Yeah, exactly. And Talus too. Like, I took Talus out to breakfast and I was like, dude, this is a pitch deck. Like, this is what you need to do to, like, you know, because it's just like a good way of giving back. And it's like we get to make camo hats and cool shit and custom fenders. We do custom fenders for Skeeta, New Belgium, Fat Tire, or Philo. A couple other companies.
Are you making that stuff in Asia?
No,
or where you
made in the USA, baby.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Who's making those fenders?
It's a plastic company out of Everett.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, they just raised our MOQs, so we'll see if we stick with them. But it's just like it's like we're looking for like low cost, high margin stuff and just stuff that we can be creative with. Like I said,
yeah.
I'm actually stoked about the goggles. I found a goggle manufacturer that like makes sick goggles and. Yeah, we'll sneak peek them here in the next month or so.
Nice.
But like, I was amazed. I was like, man, like, because POC was like, I love their gear, but like, I kept asking for help from them for years, and it's like, you know, when you're doing well, you know, it's like working with you. It's like, I fucking love running Tenet stuff. I love like people always ask about it.
That.
No, it's cool though. It's like it's one of the brands that I'm like would never step away from just because it's like it's so sick and it's unique and it looks good and it's just like something I'd buy. Especially like, you know, you could run it no branded. You could run like these amazing raw parts. Like it's just sick. But there's like other companies that it's like, it's clearly like they're getting a lot more out of something. Like, you know, it's like I have no expectations from Tenet except to just have badass parts. But like from like a company like POC, I was like, man, like, can you help me with a flight? Can you help me with this? Like, because everything that's like get photos published in FreeHub, get like 100,000 views on a video, and it's like POC. And then I'm like, why shouldn't that say Tirefire? You know?
Yeah.
So that was like my mentality.
Yeah.
I was like, let's just dial in Tirefire.
Yeah.
So I found a goggle manufacturer. Samples arrive next week and should be dropping those by early spring.
That's fun.
Yeah. It's just fun. Like that's the thing.
I mean, from one, you know, entrepreneur
to another to a mediocre entrepreneur.
I totally see and understand the excitement and like the interest in doing your own thing, and it's really fun to learn.
Yeah.
I mean, for me myself, like starting Tenet, I didn't pay myself for many years, and this past year was my first time ever giving myself a paycheck, which is not enough money.
So, trust me, I know.
But
I know how that works.
But I think it's kind of one of those things where it's like learning, like you said, like it's a good learning experience, and for me, I put a lot of water and weight into the success of this brand. Where if you can start something and it's sort of like a side project that you're just sort of like
picking away at.
Yeah, and playing
like
with.
Like it'll go dormant for 2 months sometimes.
Yeah,
we
and
won't do anything.
And just playing with it and like being like, you know what, it's fun. I want to learn how to find a manufacturer. I want to learn how to negotiate stuff like that. You know, like having something where you're like, oh, I've got a full-time job that I fully love, but I want to like do this on the side as like a fun hobby, a side hobby. That hobby could, you never know, like get to the
and I
point
think
where
the
it's your
product
job.
stuff is tough. I think the trouble we have with Tirefire sometimes is like not enough direction. Because it's like, you know, your goal is like, I want to make the baddest components I can.
Yeah.
Like, made in the US. Like I want them to look good, like ride well, be durable, like have like cool people associated with it. And you're creating like also all the brand around it. But for us, it's like we have a brand and then we're like, let's do this. So it's like sometimes the scatterbrain is tough, but like for us, like you're saying, it's just learning. You know, it's like my WhatsApp right now is like I got people from Pakistan, Vietnam, like China. You want to text somebody? I got every time zone, baby.
Yeah.
You know, like but it's fun, you know, and then it's like and like you're saying, like maybe one day, like that's how all the Subsistence videos are funded. You know, when I'm 40 and like even more washed up than I am now and limping twice as hard, like maybe all the Subsistence videos are Tirefire productions. You know, so it's just messing around with that stuff, and it's just fun. Like maybe one day it's like Talus is in between contracts with a sick clothing company, and we could step in and be like, hey man, we want to support you. Yeah. So it's like we got a French rider, Alex Valls. And then my brother Hank, and then the In the Hills kids were running our stuff. Yeah, so we got a pretty solid group of riders.
Yeah,
it's pretty dialed.
That's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's just fun.
Yeah.
Beers and camo.
I would say I would love to work with you, but I have too much appreciation for Keeley and Groundkeeper.
We respect that.
I really
We're trying to step away from fenders anyway.
Yeah, get more into some more high quality, bigger.
I'll send you a pair of goggles as soon as we get.
I will wear a Tirefire goggle all day long.
That's all I need to know.
Right here, working at the office, I'll wear a Tirefire goggle. You should make sunglasses too, because I lose a pair of I lose a pair of sunglasses pretty much every single once a month. So.
There is a great pair on Amazon that are like $5 that you should just get. I have like a stack of them in my garage that I pull off the shelf.
Nice.
They pinch your temples a little bit too hard, but they're no, that's in the works as well.
Yeah.
So I have one manufacturer I'm getting 5 samples from, and then on the other one, it's just fun to deal with that stuff because you realize how the world works. Also, it pisses me off because then I see the margins that some of these companies are making.
Oh, I know.
It's like goggles is a great example. I was like, what the fuck, man? Like all these brands, I'm like, these guys this is highway robbery, man. So it's kind of cool to be our, even with our pant, it's like we did a pant, it's not a Fox pant or anything, but it'll probably last just as long. Mm-hmm. But it's like, you see the margins that they're running at it. It's so similar to it. We're like, why don't we just charge less? It's like,
well, I mean, so the problem there's a lot of dynamics to it. The problem is as you scale a business, your overhead grows exponentially. Yeah. And so when you've got X amount of employees and then you have as you scale, the more product you have out in the marketplace, the more problems you have, whether it's torn seams or something like that.
Yeah, we already had that problem.
Exactly. So I think a lot of these companies are, maybe the margins are really high, but their overhead and their cost of doing business
and their
is
risk
also
is high too.
Really
high.
high.
They have designers and accountants, and it's all 3 of us just have ideas. None of us are good at anything. So.
Yeah, and theoretically, as you grow, your cost per item usually should go down if you negotiate with your supplier.
Oh, totally. But, and it's just like I said, it's just fun. And it's if we can do it just to support cool stuff, we're down with it. I'd love to have a team of Groms that are getting paid to go to events and stuff like that and do some cool stuff. I think a lot of surf brands have actually done that really well. And even Sensus, looking up to Cam, the way he's grown his brand has been really cool.
I know. It's actually pretty insane how big Sensus is for just being a grip company.
Just a grip company, and it's cool. They're made in the U.S. and it's I think he kind of nailed it, making different grips, as far as almost like a use per grip, which is cool. But just seeing that, it's you see they'll have an idea and just throw it out there. It's oh, let's make this T-shirt. Let's make this let's do a run of beanies like this. Oh, this is in style. Let's make a fat grip. Let's make the Emil grip is so sick. That slip on it was something that's let's take something that's very BMX. Apply it to mountain biking. Yeah. And it's there's just a lot of avenues you can go with that. And it's just cool. You have this I put it in the category of a surf brand. You walk into a Ron John surf shop and buy a Quicksilver shirt or Billabong shirt. And it's most people who are wearing that stuff don't have a Billabong wetsuit, and aren't surfing overhead waves. But they want to be part of that, you know? And if you can kind of create something like that, Tirefire, we have a bunch of snowboard buddies, like I said, from Vermont. Those kids eat that shit up, and it's sick because that's who I want on it. I want skaters and surfers and snowboarders to think it's cool because, as you know, as a biker, we've been the nerds of the action sports community for however since I started. Big time. Yeah, and it's cool. It's just going off on a tangent, but it's seeing trails videos of the most famous trails in the world and seeing guys on mountain bikes ride them now. You're like, what the fuck happened? When did this get cool? Yeah. Or I know for Johnny Salito's events, Anthony Napolitan, Dennis Anderson wants to go down this year, and you're like, dude, that's huge. Yeah. That's to have the sickest BMXer in the world, validating mountain biking.
And it's happening from every aspect.
Christian
of BMX
Regal,
too.
it's so sick. It's fine.
Brad
Sims, dude. The stuff Brad he's doing is wild. Yeah. I will say some BMXer's style doesn't transfer very well. Hucker's my favorite BMXer. I saw a video of him on a mountain bike, and I was like, maybe you should just keep biking.
Did you ever see Sergio Leos?
Dude, he is he was riding Adolf Silva's jumps, and he was he's just too steezy.
He's insane.
Yeah.
Sergio Leos, insane. The other one, Tony Hamlin.
I don't think I know that guy.
He's a dude from the Midwest that was a ramp rider, then a street rider. So he's ramp rider, insane ramp rider. and then he started like grinding big rails and things like that. But he's riding mountain bikes now. He rides more mountain bikes. All of his social media is all mountain bike stuff. But he's doing like flares on a mountain bike, like a dirt bank to a tree, and he's like riding up the dirt bank off the tree and doing a flare and landing back in the bank.
It's just cool. It's just cool to know that they think we're cool. Which is funny. The irony of it is that they're a bunch of adults riding 20-inch bikes, right? Yeah. But it's just cool to see that. And so it's like, even I think in like BMX is one thing. I knew the BMXers would come around. They'd cave.
I was one of those guys. I was like, mountain biking is so dumb. Yeah, they're
with your
nerdy.
Tight ass jeans on. And
No, like, oh man, you're mountain bikers and your spandex. Like, oh, you guys are such nerds.
And you're like, holy shit, this is gnarly. But then on the flip side, to see the skate and snowboard world, like step into the mountain bike stuff. Like we work down at Wendell's, like milepost 35. And Bobby Meeks, like legendary street snowboarders, their head of marketing. The dude has a mountain bike, and he'll hit me up and be like, dude, this is the sickest shit ever. How did I not get into this? And then I went to a conference down in Tahoe for Effective Edge. They do like terrain park auditing, but they're trying to get into the bike world a little bit more. So I like went down there, oblivious to the snowboard world. This is like painful for anybody who's a snowboarder, but it's like Pat Moore, Pat Bridges, like Jeremy Jones, like the Urban Rider, like all the biggest names in like snowboarding and terrain park building. Dude, I didn't have a clue who these dudes were. And my job was to take a mountain biking on a trail we built one day. And like, I had no idea. I was like sitting there, like sitting next to Pat Bridges, like, and I'd be like, oh, what's your name? Like, what do you do for work? You know, and like, and then I looked up my roommate back here, Mike Scarfy, was like, dude, I think I like saw you down at a conference. Like, do you even know who Pat Bridges and Pat Moore are? It's like, dude, I have no idea.
Yeah, Pat Moore was like, that's it. That's all. Like,
dude, they're all those dudes. Like Jeremy
Travis
Jones.
Rice. Yeah. Oh yeah, Jeremy. I mean, which Jeremy Jones? There's
urban,
two.
The
urban one.
Dude,
yeah.
So he was like, we built this trail in Tahoe that's like fucking sick jump line. Like, got away with a lot for a Forest Service trail, like big hips and stuff like that. And I took all these guys down, and they were all ripping. And he was just like in sweats, like his like little snowboard kit, his little tiny beanie and stuff like that, like rolled up above the ears. But dude, he was like sessioning these jumps and killing it. And I didn't realize, first of all, he's not that old, but in the scheme of like hitting big jumps, he's a pretty old dude. Mm-hmm. And I was like so validating to be like, dude, one of the baddest urban snowboarders of all time is obsessed with mountain biking. Yeah. Like at that point, I was like, finally, like mountain biking is cool. Because dude, for so long, I couldn't even get my moto friends to ride mountain bikes, like to cross train, right? And then so now to like have like the coolest dudes out there, and all these Burton guys that we know from Vermont are all obsessed with mountain biking, and it's just cool to see. You're like, finally, like we made it. So it's like long story that's still long, but like Tirefire, to see those guys like stoked on, I'm like sick. Like if we can bring like that skate snowboard energy into biking, then we can stop it from being like skiing, like nerdy ass real estate focused skiing.
I take a ton of inspiration. I've talked multiple times about it. And I get a lot of inspiration from BMX skate snowboarding culture, like the art with the music and things like that. I want that culture to be a part of, like that mentality to be a part of.
Yeah, it's honestly more inclusive. You know, it's like with skating. Like people are like, how do we make our sport more inclusive? It's like, look at skating. It's probably the most inclusive, besides soccer, sport in the world, because it's accessible. And like nobody judges you for anything, because it's like not gear based. You can't even see the bike they're on, you know. But I mean, that's like when I connected with you. It's like we were riding the jumps up there that first day I met you, you know, up on Galby, and I was like, you could just tell, like you guys were all just sessioning the jump. Like you would show up to a skate park and session a quarter pipe, and I was like, I think I hit you up. I was like, oh, dude, I want some bars. Like, and that was it. I still have those bars. I still run them on my dirt jump.
I know we got some new stuff in the works.
Okay, good.
Sneak peek to everyone. Actually, I'm not going to tell anyone.
Yeah.
But we got some new stuff in the works, so we'll get you freshened up with some new bars.
Perfect.
Back to Tirefire.
Speed supply.
What's the name? Like the name, I assume you bought the brand from Greg, right? So
Greg's the best jaded designer I know, because he knows what's cool long before everybody knows. So he was on that flame kick. He just knew. Also, I don't know if it was intentional, but if you Google Tirefire, there's like a pretty famous like pile of tires that's on fire, like somewhere in Africa or the Middle East or something.
It's in Iraq, I think.
Yeah, and so it's like
Afghanistan.
So if you put it on our name, like the first images that pop up are like, which is kind of sick. It's like, obviously, like I'm an environmentalist through and through. Don't get me wrong, but I will take great pride in knowing that if you Google our brand, that there's a pile of tires on fire in Iraq, and that's the first image that pops up.
Yeah. I think the idea, or at least I think there's an opportunity there, is like tire fire. Once you light it, it never goes out.
Oh yeah, like I think like I'm not pro smoking cigs, but I'd be willing to like smoke some cigs for an ad campaign if we're gonna, if need be. So maybe we will. We got a couple products coming out. Like, I think like, you know, maybe with the goggles or the vest, like we could do something with cigarettes.
Candy cigarettes.
Yeah.
I went bowling the other day, and there was at the bowling alley here in Bellingham, they've got this case full of like old toys and stuff. It's a lot of.
Oh, I know the case.
Yeah.
Also, great fish sandwiches at that bowling alley.
Oh, I've never had that.
Yeah, go for the fish.
But there's a lot of Big Lebowski memorabilia and stuff in there. But they had a pack of candy cigarettes, and I was like, I can't even believe that existed.
Yeah, they stopped making those 10 years ago.
Candy cigarettes. It was like they were like cigarettes with little like everything that came in a pack, and they were gum. I think you like sucked on them and they turned to gum in your mouth.
I bought some of those in Massachusetts this summer too.
Oh, they still sell them?
Yeah, I was at like one of those like classic boardwalk candy stores.
And there's a company that makes that, and
They're
it's
out
still,
of
they're
we
not,
looked it up. They're out of Romania.
Banned.
They're like out of Romania or somewhere in the Eastern Bloc. So,
oh my god,
yeah, it's pretty rogue. But I think it's like that's also the thing. It's like I'm okay to like break some rules with Tirefire. I think that's the idea. And like Dave and Che and you know Greg supporting it. Like we want like people to validate it. Sometimes you got to break the rules. Like you know the cool kid in school wasn't like following all the rules. You know he's smoking cigs in the bathroom, throwing rocks through the window. So it's like, how can we be that brand and not get in too much trouble? Yeah, we've been joking we need to get canceled to like boost some sales, but none of us actually want to get canceled.
I think the approach that I take is like sort of tapping into the punk rock and metal sort of attitude, like where it's inclusive to all groups, but it's like fuck you.
It's like fuck the man.
Yeah, fuck the man.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's exactly it. It's like like biking is my interpretation of it. It's like I've known it's been cool for so long, but it's like there's so many aspects to biking that it's like, dude, we don't need to do this. Like it's bad for our image. And I just don't want biking. Like skiing was the coolest sport ever, you know, and it's turned into this real estate game. And it sucks. Like skiing, there's still good media coming out. There's so many people pushing it, and it's no disrespect to the athletes and everybody else doing that, but like unfortunately it's like clearly gone over the hill. And it's like going downhill, and it's like these resorts can't recover. The small resorts are gone. Like, you know, growing up back east, and I'm sure in the Midwest, it's like you ski because that's just what you do in the winter. You know, it's like you go after work, no matter what you make for money. Everybody went skiing, night skiing, doesn't matter what your gear is. And now it's like a fashion show whenever you go to the mountain, you know, and it just sucks. So it's like, how can we, and biking, it's just inherently 10 years behind skiing all the time. Like, I don't want it to become skiing because it's like, then that gives an expiration date to biking. But if like we can have that aspect of like the in the hills kids in like khakis and like cutoff shorts, like chugging beers, doing 50-foot flat spins in the desert, and still have like the baddest dudes like crushing XC rides and like Hannah riding the most rogue shit in the woods and building the gnarliest stuff, like we can have all that and not like get pigeonholed into this like real estate game that is skiing.
I think there will always be, there's going to be different pockets of mountain biking. And they're just going to become more and more so. Like, there's going to be the dentist, like, I need to have the most expensive bicycle.
That's how we get paid.
I need to have the most expensive bicycle I could possibly have, right? Yeah. And they have a snooty attitude towards, like, you know, it's sort of that roadie mentality of, like, oh, my bike's better than that guy's bike, you know, at the trailhead or some shit. But there will always be another like fringe group within mountain biking that is sort of like, you know what, I like riding bikes and I like slapping corners and blowing up berms and
riding old ass bikes.
Yeah, and I don't care what anyone thinks of me, you know. I think that attitude will exist. You know, I think there's even in like skateboarding, snowboarding, BMX, there's different elements. There's like the contest, like I'm obsessed with tricks, you know, like I need to learn and do as many bar spins as I possibly can, right? But then there's also like the dudes in the woods that are stacking lips and just blasting jumps, and they're just like, you know,
like I'm
slamming beers and not caring about anything that's happening in BMX, right? Like that genre, that culture will exist in mountain biking, I think, forever.
Yeah.
It just how big it is and where it lies.
You just don't want the top end of the sport to kill the sport.
Yeah, and I don't know if it ever will. I mean, in skiing, like, is skiing dead? No,
it's not dead. It's just like, it just pains me to like sometimes show up at a resort and see like, you know, like, and maybe it was just like my, like growing up watching NAR and like watching like Doug Coombs and like all these dudes like living in shacks with all their buddies, like skiing every day. And like this hard, you know, it just, the industry's resistant to that now because they're so focused on selling condos and selling lift tickets and stuff like that, which is, you know, it's all business, but it's like, you know, like Vail, it's like they've done so much for skiing that we have to give them credit for. Like we can't be like Vail sucks fully because they make skiing more affordable on their passes and stuff like that. But on the flip side, they're not a ski brand. They're a hotel brand. Yeah. You know, they're a restaurant company. Like, and so as long as we can kind of prevent that, give that buffer to biking.
Okay. Like, I don't mean to cut you off. No. I want to add something to that. Yeah. Okay. Here's a perspective or a thought that that just kind of popped in my head. So skiing specifically, right? Yeah. The barrier of entry is very high. It's like the cost of skis.
And year to year.
It's a continued expense. You know, I paid $1,000 for a ski, a Mount Baker season pass. And that is insane to me. It's like pain. I hate thinking about it. It's really, 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 really tough to think about. But regardless, the cost of getting in to participate in skiing is very high. If you are going out and ski touring and whatnot, the cost can be lower, right? You buy the gear 100%. And that gear should last you several years and you can use it and get out a lot. But it takes a very specific person to be like, okay, I'm going to put my head down and grind to the top of the mountain, right? And do it 3 times and then go home. But so I'm willing to say, I don't think mountain biking will ever get to the point of skiing because, yes, the cost of getting your bike up front is very high, but there's a lot of access
and convenience.
Yeah, as trail networks grow and as more mountain biking becomes accessible in communities across the world, you know, as it grows globally, I think that hopefully the barrier will come down, you know. I mean, and
there's a lot of brands doing cool shit. Like there's like Marin has awesome cheap bikes. You know, it's like Specialized. People give Specialized a hard time. They're the coolest brand. Like as far as like,
no, I think they're doing great. I mean,
they have the sickest sub $3,000 bike on the market.
The Status? The Status, yeah.
That is the coolest shit that's happened in biking. Yeah. You know, because it's like. And that's the thing. Like, I agree. Like, I think there's a lot of things in our favor with biking too. I just like tend to like. I'm just so pissed off at skiing sometimes that it's like I'm like, please, like, do everything we can to not have this happen. But yeah, I agree. Like, it's like, you know, even here, 90,000 people or 80,000 people or whoever lives in Bellingham, there's not a single house in the city limits that you couldn't ride to the trails to. You don't even need a car. Yeah. You know, so as long as like people are supporting that grassroots side of it, then we'll be totally fine. And you're not paying every time you go to Galway. No. You're not seeing money fly out of your pocket when you go after, like, you know, even today I went on a little gravel ride, but it's like I didn't like spend money to do that. The money was spent 3 years ago on the gravel bike, you know? And so it's a little more justifiable. But if we can bring that upfront cost down a little bit, it'd be pretty rad.
Yeah. And for me personally, like, it's difficult. You got to toy a fine line because at this point right now with my brand specifically and maybe just manufacturing in general, like it's really tough to make affordable products in America. I would love to change that. You know, my hope is that will change with time, you know, as more production comes back. But I think that, you know, domestically, it comes back domestically and whatnot. But I think that, like, you know, in general, you know, the products that we produce, you know, the Occult is a very affordable, is a somewhat affordable pedal in the grand scheme of things. We're not making
100%.
We're not making like the $50 plastic pedal, you know, but I don't know. There's this weird. I don't know if it's so hard for me as an owner of a company to be like, okay, well, are we going to make the like really cheap products and source them from areas of the country that are
no, you got to make it good.
Right.
You got to make it good.
And so like, you know, I want to see that barrier come down, and I think with time it will. You know, but it is these bike brands like Specialized and whatnot that are making products that are a lot easier for people to get their hands on, you know. And my hope,
and they know what they're doing in Taiwan. It's like I'm all for U.S. manufacturing, but like people forget that. They're like, it needs to be U.S. made, but it's like they know like those bikes coming out of there, the best bikes in the world are coming out of Asia.
Yeah. Oh,
and,
for sure.
And those factories like create incredible product, and I think that's just as big of an issue as cost. Is like not only is it cost, but it's like quality. It's like it's hard to beat that. So it's like, you know, I ride for Banshee, and they make the sickest bikes ever. They're made in Taiwan. Those bikes are bomb proof.
Well, so the reason for that specifically is because at one point in time, people were making bikes in America. Mm-hmm. You know, there are a lot of brands were making products here. And then when everything, you know, globalization happened and everything shifted to Asia, we sort of just as a country, as you know, America just sort of passed manufacturing onto these guys, and then they had their industrial revolution, and then they mastered it.
They're so good.
And we sat idly and didn't master it. You know, like in Taiwan, a lot of high quality products come out of Taiwan because they know how to produce really good bike parts fast.
Yeah.
They've dialed it in, and that's the other thing is, so where I make shit here in the United States in Bellingham at True Life, they're not a bicycle manufacturer. They are aerospace and medical. They make.
And that's who you want doing it. NASA, baby.
They're really good at making high quality, high precision parts. We had to like get them to unlearn some of that like Boeing, SpaceX like mentality.
Calm down your specs, man.
because they were approaching it like, oh, well, you know, your tolerances are are too loose, and it's like we have somewhat tight tolerances in the world of mountain biking, but you know, in Taiwan they've mastered it. They know exactly like, oh, we can produce if we machine it this way or that way, or we fixture it this way or that way, we can produce stuff a lot more quickly, right? And so because of that, you know, they've led it for so long that's why they're able to produce. They could produce probably 10 stems for every one that's produced here in America, and it's just because they've got it so dialed over there.
It's cool to see. No, I mean I'm all for it. I want U.S. manufacturing, but it's like, you know, living with global. Yeah,
and I think like you know, for me personally, you know, bringing it back here and then trying to take that mentality of like, okay, what they're doing or what they have done in Taiwan, how can we do that here, right?
Yeah.
You know, a manufacturer in Taiwan is like the pedal manufacturer that makes the Occult. They are a pedal manufacturer. That's all they make. They only make pedals. So if you only make pedals for 20 years, you're going to learn how to make. You're going to be really good at making pedals. If you focus on manufacturing bicycle parts, you can really, really start to dial it in and start shaving off time and being able to like figure out tricks of the trade to be able to do it more effectively and more efficiently. And there are other brands who are already way ahead of us with that, you know, that like Wolf Tooth and I9 and Chris King and like all these other manufacturers here, you know, in the US. And my goal personally is to one day be like that, you know, and
That'd
be able
sick.
to get to that point where we're making stuff is like.
Just have one question, then you can leave us hanging. Are you ever going to make a Tenet BMX frame?
I never say never. I never say never.
Yeah. Just make like 5 of them.
It's not in the 10-year plan. But
I think 15-year-old Ty would be pissed at that answer.
Yeah, probably. I mean, I'm never against any sort of. I'm never gonna.
I always thought
never
it'd be cool to
not
do like small
do
runs
anything.
of like stuff like that, but that's like not really that realistic.
I mean, if you were to like talk to the guys at Evil, I don't know, Kevin Walsh or any of those guys, like, and say like, oh, are you guys ever, 10 years ago, like, oh, would you guys make a snowboard?
Yeah, or a gravel
They'd probably
bike.
be like, what? We're never making a snowboard. But they made a snowboard at one point.
Yeah.
They partnered with LibTech and made
I know,
a
I saw
snowboard.
that. Or like a gravel bike.
Yeah.
They'd be like, you guys ever make a
Yeah,
gravel bike?
they'd be
gravel
like,
bikes for nerds.
Yeah, totally.
That's probably their number one selling bike.
100%. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's kind of one of those things. I kind of like to leave the brand a little bit of an open book to an extent, so that the opportunity to do something cool arises. I don't know. Maybe we sponsor a BMXer and they're like, oh, we want to make a custom frame or some sort of BMX inspired product.
Yeah, getting the frame stuff would be pretty damn tough, but it'd be cool. Back to the roots.
Yeah.
You got to do a tribute to middle school Ty. That's what I always think. I'm like, would middle school Cody be pissed if I wasn't doing this? Whenever I get asked to do something, I'm on the fence. But like, shit, it's like get invited on a trip or like to do this build or like even pay for something. I'm like, what would middle school Cody think?
Yeah.
Would he be pissed that I'm saying no? Because then I should probably do it.
I know. Yeah, I mean, I was a pretty jaded BMXer back in my days, and I would talk so much shit on mountain biking. And if I were to look at myself now, back then, I probably would be like, what the fuck who is this guy?
But you did it, and it's cool. And love the brand. It's been sick.
You.
I've been
Thank
it's been cool. And I think like the positive feedback I get on the stuff, like everywhere I go, is like pretty rad because it's unique enough. Like you can spot it, but it's not like so loud that it's obnoxious.
Yeah.
Like.
No, that's intentional. I don't want to be obnoxious.
And you can tell it's intentional. Like people see it. It's like it's high quality. It stands out, but it's like it's not like look at me. I'm like bright yellow. You can see me from across the room. But it's like it's very noticeable, and I think like people are like.
No, it's definitely
really cool.
for a specific person. Like the brand is the brand is more directed towards somebody who appreciates everything that the brand is, right? Yeah. Like if you're somebody, and I get a lot of people saying, "Oh, are you ever going to make orange parts? Are you ever going to make red parts? Anno red, bright. I want bright pink or whatever." And I'm like,
there's brands for that, baby.
Yeah, I'm like, those products are already out there.
Yeah.
You can go support a myriad of other rider-owned brands, and they're doing it really good. But I'm not really feeling that. But at this juncture, not for us. Maybe when everybody moves away from those bright colors, we'll be the brand that does the bright colors.
Dude, sneak
go
right
against the grain at all times.
No, last time I was in here, you gave me a little sneak peek of some of the stuff that you have in the works, and I'm super excited for it. So
it'll all come out.
Stoked to keep rocking it. So,
well, Cody. It's been great having you on.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to tell the world? Anything you want to say? Any cool projects? Anything?
I got nothing.
No?
Support Tirefire. We got some cool stuff coming out.
Yeah. Check out Tirefire.
Speed Supply.
We'll throw. I love that Speed Supply. We'll throw that on the description so you guys can go check out the website.
Yeah. We'll put that in the description. Just want to keep building trails and making cool videos and hanging out and. Yeah, nice. I'm trying to get into sports that aren't biking, so I'm not a one-trick pony.
Yeah,
that's on the list. So.
We actually I got to get you up to Galby to check out the Tenet Trail.
Oh yeah,
somebody pushed through and opened it. We did so they got logged, and Janicki just straight up did not try to preserve the trail at all. There was there was like feet of slash down where the trail originally went.
It's not just logs down. It's like
it was slash. It was like deep slash.
Can we get an excavator up there for a day?
It's already been so we moved a bunch of slash and cut a bunch of stuff and got it somewhat opened up, and then summer hit, and then we just like didn't dig because it was just too dry and hot, and so but since then somebody has opened it up. EB hit me up and he was like, "Hey, what's the status of the trail?" And I was like, "Of Prison Love." And I was like, we kind of left it half done, but I still got to get it opened again. And then he texted me back. He's like, "Oh, actually, it's open." I'm like, "Wait, what?"
Trail ferries.
There's
trail ferries.
Yeah.
They
Good
exist.
on them.
Yeah.
Thank you,
No, if you need
whoever was out there digging.
If
That's
you need
awesome.
help, I'm here to dig whenever. Rad Trails,
Yeah.
the world's local builder.
There you go. Sensus Rad Trails, the world's,
The world's
local
local
builder.
nonprofit. But if you do actually need any building, let me know.
Yeah.
I'll run
No,
an
we got
excavator for you guys
we got a
whenever.
lot of projects that we got to get going.
Let's do it. Let's get that mulch shop built. Oh,
No, don't even talk about that. It's a controversy. Damn it. Just mention, we're trying to dust that under the
the
rug.
one thing we need in this town besides a slalom track. Hint, hint.
Yeah. No, I know. Well, the problem is that it's we started building it in a really poor spot and it needs to move somewhere else. To be
Okay.
honest, that's
Let's find a
what
spot.
that's what needs to
We need
happen.
to find a backyard for it. That's the best spot for it.
No, but that is one thing. But blue steel, or not blue steel, sorry, cedar dust, the Pro line is
Recently
something
adopted
that
by Tenet.
well, not
Unofficially,
officially.
recently.
No, I don't want to say anything. Sky was like, yeah, I don't know. We're kind of really focusing on blue steel, so I don't know if that's actually going to happen or not. But regardless, having helped, originally build that, I want to do a dig day on it, even though it's a transition
Sick.
trail. I don't even care. I'm just going to do like a Tenet.
Yeah.
Maybe
We're all
transition
in it
and
for the
Tenet
same reason to just
come
dial it in.
together
Yeah.
and we throw a dig day and bring
Make it
beer and food and everything up there and everyone can spend
do
a
it.
day digging. But we had been talking a lot about putting a machine up there and just like fully redoing the upper section. And
It's already cleared. Let's do it. I'm down. I'll run that machine all day. If I'm in town,
yeah,
which is rare. I feel like that's our biggest issue. It's like, oh, you down to this, and it's like, well, I'm out of town, but I'm here then. It's like the
I
dates
know.
hard to keep working. But hit me up.
Yeah.
Maybe one day I'll even have our Rad Trails excavator up here for a couple months.
that'd be sick.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
So
All right, cool. Cody, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how to end this, I guess. Cody, thank you for coming onto the show, and we'll catch you guys next time.
I appreciate it. Thank you. I also do
Cheers.
want to say one more thank you
Oh.
to Dave Watson because I bought my first freeride mountain bike because he jumped it. That was a poster in my local shop growing up. So
Okay, hold on one second. We're gonna undo our end there. So I got this. That's a Scott Markowitz photo,
yeah.
and I was in Whistler doing Crankworks, and Bike Mag did a photo auction something or other event at the Fire Rock Tavern. It's in the base of one of the hotels.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my God, that photo is so sick. Because I don't think this camera, it's probably out of focus, but it's a photo of Dave Watson
Jumping
the Tour de France.
2003.
2003. He broke his leg. I don't know if you know that. He crashed
And
when
he
he
tried
landed.
to run away with a broken leg. And that was the sequence of that was in Overlook Mountain Bikes. When I walked in there at 12 years old, I bought a Kona because of it. And yeah, that's probably the reason I quit racing.
Yeah.
To hug off cliffs.
Yeah.
So
So anyways,
shout out to Dave Watson.
back to that story though. I bought this. This was for auction, and I was like, "Oh man, I'm gonna bid on it." So I bid on it because I just thought it was the sickest photo. I just thought it was really funny, and I won. And so I won the auction. I get the photo. I'm holding it. I go over, and Eric Porter is a good friend of mine, and he's hanging out, sitting on a bench with this older gentleman. And I'm like, "Oh, dude, Eric, look at this fucking sick photo I got." And next to him, the guy sitting next to Eric, he's like, "Oh yeah, that's Scott Markowitz. This guy right here. That's his photo."
No way.
And I was like, "What?" And Scott was like, "Yep, I shot that." And it was Scott Markowitz sitting next to Eric, and I was like, "Holy shit, it's so cool."
That's
I
so
didn't have a marker, and I was like, "Oh, you should sign it. It'd be super cool." But he has like the most covers of any photographer in action sports.
That's a defining photo right there
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
sport of mountain biking.
Yeah.
There's very few people that would go as large as that even today. So
Yeah, it's pretty
end on
savage.
that. Big
right.
airs.
All right, cool. Well, everyone, thanks a lot for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time. See ya.